Welcome to the Veri Podcast. Today we have with us a gentleman I've known for many years now, Benedict Carter of Caravelle Partners out of Zambia. Had the fortune to meet up with Benedict in Zambia a few months ago, and we've kept in touch since. And he'll be working with the Veri platform in the non too distant future moving forward. And we're talking on a number of options and number of schemes and opportunities that are out there at this moment in time. Okay, the normal format to obviously the podcast, we're going to dive in. So first of all, say hello. Hello, Benedict. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm very well, thank you, Derry, and thanks very much indeed for inviting me on. It's an honour, as always, to talk to you. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to finding out a little bit more about yourself, Benedict, and I'm sure there's going to be a fun along the way. What would you say that's one of the most interesting things about you that most people probably don't know about that you would like to, let's say, divulge to the masses?
Well, you get to my age and there are any number of bullet points, Derry, but if we go back many years now, how would I sum up my background? I'm one of 9 children from a very traditional Catholic family. That's where my name comes from, I'm sure. By the way, everybody calls me Ben. It was only my mother, when she was annoyed with me, who called me Benedict. So let's make it Ben. So yeah, I was 4th of 9 children from Eastern England. I was born in a very tiny little and very ancient Anglo-Saxon village on the border of Lincolnshire and Cambridgeshire. We moved to Norfolk when I was 3, I think, and that really was my home county. So a very rural life in there amongst the sugar beet and the cows, but not on a farm, in a village some way from Norwich. So Norwich would be hometown, you can say. So maybe a little bit unusually for our industry, to be honest. I ended up getting an education that was much too good for me. Just a really ragamuffin village boy. I ended up with 2 degrees from Cambridge University in medieval history, believe it or not. And so I got my BA honours and masters from Queen's College, Cambridge. And then you come to the day when you graduate, you think, well, what the hell am I going to do now? So after not very much thought, I thought the military life would be the life for me. So I got a place at one of Britain's military academies, which was Britannia Royal Naval College down in Dartmouth in Devon. And I pretended to be a naval officer for a while. And so I passed out of Dartmouth, did a bit of sea time on a couple of ships, and then left. Realising it really wasn't for me at all. I think I was too immature. I was about 23 at this age, at that time. I really was still very immature, and really I wasn't grown up enough to be a leader of men. Maybe the army would have been a better bet at that time rather than the navy. But it did teach me some lessons, which I've kept over my life. So, even if it's only how to make your bed in the morning and just get up on time and turn up to meetings on time, these kind of basic military skills are drubbed into you from day one. So, yeah, and then I worked for a German company for a few years after that. That was near London and also up near Manchester. Other things from my early life, I'm kind of, to this day, a little bit proud of. I did end up playing in my 3rd year at university, I ended up playing for the university rugby team. Sadly, not against Oxford. I would have needed to food poison 2 or 3 guys to get into the team on the big day. But I did play, this is kind of my rugby highlight maybe, I did play against the full Leicester team once upon a time, which was a frightening experience, I can tell you. And but so yeah, I was pretty good at rugby back in the day, and I also captained the county at cricket as well at schoolboy level. So used to fling them down at a fair old rate once upon a time. And yeah, so you know, it was very sporting early life, quite religious. I'm a Catholic to this day. I do practice the faith. It is important to me. And but eventually ended up in offshore financial services. Can you imagine?
If you could spend a day with an historical figure, living or deceased, who would that be and why?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I immediately came to my mind two names. Well, three if we include Jesus Christ, but that would be an obvious choice. So I'll leave the good Lord aside. I would go for either Alfred the Great or Athelstan. The Anglo-Saxons are my absolute heroes, the fathers of the English race, who gave us everything from our county names to most of our market towns to our language and our legal system. And it was all an awful long time ago, but these guys are absolutely my kind of historical heroes. And I did study that period at university a little bit, so to this day it's a great love of mine, Anglo-Saxon England, and Alfred, absolute superstar, the greatest king we've had in our history, bar none. And Athelstan, 927, the first recognised king of England rather than king of the Anglo-Saxons, which his grandfather Alfred was. So Athelstan was our first king of England. And anyway, they just had brilliant names, didn't they? They just had great names. So you've got to respect them for that alone. Yeah, so I would go for either Alfred or Athelstan.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
I think moved from Kazakhstan to Russia on the 13th of December 1999, and then started the most bizarre 11 or 12 years of my life, replete with far too many stories, some horrifying, and others just downright funny. But yeah, and the way that came about, Derek, but I'm jumping ahead here because we need to talk about how I got into the industry. But I would definitely offer that one. And then within that, there were individual incidents that were just, you know, I really should write the book at some point. Do you know, I was the first ever offshore advisor in Kazakhstan, ever. The first one. So that's my footnote to history, probably, at least as far as our industry is concerned. Yeah, lovely place as well.
And what advice would you give somebody just starting out in the industry, the finance sector now, or are looking to take up a role similar to where you started? What would you say to
it's a very, very good question. I think in our industry or any other industry, the first thing to remember is stay humble. You've got everything to learn, you know nothing, and stay humble. And stay frugal as well, because financial advisors are not the best at keeping hold of their own money, right? But you stay humble and learn and understand that you've got a lot to learn. Get qualified. I wish I'd done that much earlier than I did. Get qualified and arm yourself with the technical knowledge you need to do your job, because you belong to the professions. I really do think a good investment advisor is one of the professions, and you are consulting with your clients. You're not flogging a piece of fish to them in the market, or at least you shouldn't be. And so get yourself qualified and be the professional that you should be. But stay humble and understand you've got a great deal to learn about human beings, by the way, as much as the job itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, Ben. It's very good advice for anybody, no matter what sector they want to actually move into. Yeah,
Yeah, credentials really matter, but experience does as well. But yeah, the experience is great, but you need those credentials, especially in today's world. That's the first thing everyone's going to look at. Do you have the credentials to do the job? And the rest is what experiences have you had down the years that have exposed you to the kind of complex client situations that you need to have experienced in order to deal with the market that we're all chasing nowadays, which is the high net worth market. You do need to know what you're talking about.
I mean, we'll move into Zambia in a little while, but obviously, you being there now, and we did meet when you were in the Middle East. It's the how did that happen? Tell the audience how
Well,
you went
yeah,
there.
I suppose I have to go back a little bit, Derry, really, because there is a background to it. So I moved. I was in. So I went from Dubai. By the way, this was one of the big mistakes I made in my career in offshore wealth management, and it was right at the beginning. So I was working for a company in Dubai, the purchase of which by Britex, an old name, is what created Veri Partners. So I had already left that Dubai-based business and had gone to Azerbaijan after only a year in the industry to open that company's office there. There was a company called PIC Middle East, and I think it was that purchase by Britex of all their branches in the Middle East which formed the basis for De Vere and Partners. So I'd gone to Azerbaijan by then, and only after 6 months in Azerbaijan I went solo. And the reason for that was that I received an invoice in my inbox, or maybe there wasn't even an inbox in those days, I can't even remember, but I received an invoice charging me for the rent of the office that I was supposedly heading in Azerbaijan. So I thought, I'm not going to put up with this. That's a nice present to be given when you've been asked to go to a foreign country and an absolute hellhole of a place in those days as well, and set up an office for somebody, and then they charge you for the office rent. So that hadn't been discussed. So I thought, no, I'm not putting up with this, and I left and went solo, and that was a mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake to leave, but it was a mistake to go solo at that point because it was too early in my career. It was just too early. And I actually don't really know how I got through the next couple of years, which were mostly Kazakhstan based, not Azerbaijan based. But it was too early, Derry. I think you may be the most enterprising person in the world. You may have a brain in your head, but a year in an industry is nowhere near enough before you're pretending to be your own boss. So I should have maybe joined somebody else for a couple of years and just got a bit more experience under my belt. But however, I did get through a couple of years in Kazakhstan. And by the way, for a Norfolk boy to be opening up the curtains in the morning and see the horizon ringed with 4,000-meter snow-capped mountains was a hell of a sight, believe you me. It really is a pretty place. So, yeah, on the 13th of December 1999, I got on a train. 3 days and 3 nights later, arrived in central Moscow after a 5,000-mile trip. And then I spent the next basically 11 years in that hellhole called Russia. And we can fast forward to 11 years later, when I flew out there for the very last time in 2011, and I actually shed tears of joy that I knew I would never be going back. It really had that profound an effect on me. First years were happy, they were good. It was like, as far as women were concerned, it was like being in a sweet shop with a handful of change as a 10-year-old, looking at the licorice all sorts, and ordering a quarter of this and a quarter of that. And yeah, it was just a bedlam, just chaos and just a madhouse, an absolute madhouse. And some of it was dangerous as well. And I can just tell you a couple of quick stories which will amuse the audience and maybe yourself as well, just to show you what kind of place I was in, and then we'll fast forward a little bit to the end of it. So, 1999, I need to rent an office, find an office for myself. So I spoke a little bit of Russian at that point, but nowhere near as much as I did later. And I found a room on the third floor of a building very close to the Kremlin, beautiful pre-revolutionary building, no lift, three floors, stone stairs all the way up to the top. So on the ground floor, there was a bank. On the middle floor, there was an insurance company. And on the top floor, there was a consulting company, me in my little 25 square meter office, and some Swiss guy down the hall renting a room as well. And all I knew was that the boss in charge of this building was a guy called Nikita, which is one of those Russian names which can be used by both men and women. So I'd never met this guy until one day I'm walking down the stairs, and I apologise in advance for my Russian accent, which sounds like a James Bond film. But so I'm walking down the stairs, and this very, very well-dressed young guy is coming up the stairs with the monstrous, shaven-haired, 2-metre tall, shoulders as wide as a barn door, gun stuck in the holster, bodyguard walking up behind him. And he stopped me on the stairs, and he said, you are Ben. And I said, I am Ben, yes, and I think you might be Nikita. I am Nikita. So he walks away from me up the stairs and turns around and looks at me. He says, you know, Ben, we like you very much. And I was stupid enough, Derry, to ask why. So he looks down at me down the stairs. He says, because we like you because you are not frightened of us. And off he walks. And I'm looking at his back thinking, I bloody well am now. So... So it gets much worse. So about 2 weeks later, we cross again on the stairs. But you know, the ice has broken now, right? So I'm feeling confident, and I said to her, "Oh, Nikita, do you mind if I ask you a question?" Ask your question. So I said, "Well, you know, on the ground floor you have your bank, but it never ever has any customers. And here, where we are now, on the middle floor, you have your insurance company." You know, no customers of any kind. What is your question? So I said, well, I wondered what it was that you really do. And do you know what he said to me? He said, we do heroin. We do heroin from Afghanistan and cocaine from Colombia. What else do you want to know?
Well, you didn't
And I thought, oh my God.
though you probably already knew the answer.
I'm renting an office in a kind of mafia front company. So anyway, I worked at, there are 4 rounds to this story, but I'll just mention the third one, and then we can move on. It's just to give people a taste of what Russia, what Moscow was like in the 1990s and the first decade of this century. It was absolutely insane. So there's a knock on my office door one day, and it's his Dolly Bird receptionist. Mr. Ben, are you free? Nikita invites you for coffee. So I said, yeah, 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm not doing it. I'll come down. I'd be glad to have a coffee with him. So down I go, and she takes me into his office, which is, by the way, in the insurance company section of this business. And she sits me down opposite him, brings me a cup of coffee. I cross my legs, you know, Englishman, cup on saucer, politely sipping away. He just looks at me, gets up from his desk, locks the door from the inside. And I'm thinking, oh, God, it's one of those. And, for the first and only time, Darren, in my life, I see somebody lay a line of coke snort it up with the ubiquitous Visa card. But it's what happened then. And he opens up a drawer in his desk, pulls out this Nagant 10mm pistol, points it right at my head. And I'm thinking, you're an Englishman, just don't pretend it's not happening. Dear Lord, get me the hell out of here. And just don't react, pretend it's not happening. So he started giggling, which presumably they do when they're high. Waved this bloody thing around, pointed it at me again, and then put it back in the drawer and told me to get out. So I quietly slip away. But here's the punchline. As I'm going out the door, I look back at him, and I can see his computer screen. And what is on his computer screen? He's playing a video game called Mafia 2. And I just desperately tried to suppress laughter. This Mafia junior kind of boss or underboss or something playing a Mafia computer game. That's what that place was like, Derry, and I spent 11 years there. I did, though, so back to our subject, I started work there totally on my own, and but I did end up founding a Russian limited company there. Took it from just myself to 23 people in the end, and ended up selling it to a certain Mr. Green in 2009-10. So we did pretty well. But you know something, in those days there was so much money in Moscow. I was very lucky as well. I had one close friend who was a vice president at an oil company. You may remember the name because Putin stole it, Yukos. I think at one point it was the second biggest oil company in the world behind Exxon. And I had 7 vice president clients there at one point. All of the expats, none of the Russians, but just the expats. So there was so much money sloshing around that city then. People were being paid insane amounts of money. I remember meeting a BP guy there in Moscow, and he wasn't even at the top end of the company, and his flat allowance each month was $18,000 a month. So what he was doing was living in a flat for $2,000, just pocketing the other 16, and that was before he'd been paid his salary. So just crazy amounts of money. So maybe it wasn't that difficult, but it all came to a crashing end in 2007, 2008, when the American credit squeeze started, and just there was this giant clear out from Russia, and I headed out the door as well. So I was very, very lucky that the offer came in to buy the book of business, and it was sold and we all dispersed. So fast forward then to Caravelle. Caravelle was founded directly after that. Now I was based in Portugal, where I have a daughter whose mother is Portuguese. So it's a country I know very, very well. I even speak Portuguese not too badly, and along with my Russian. So so I went to Portugal. Really to be close to my daughter, found a Caravelle. I just used it as a vehicle for personal sales for a few years. So I was going off to all sorts of bizarre places like Ethiopia and Ghana. But then it came to COVID, and I think for a lot of people listening to this, COVID was a break point for many, wasn't it? A lot of careers, I think, took a different turn when COVID came along. So as for me, I just thought, really, I need to do something more with this business. I really don't want to do it alone anymore. I'm getting a bit older, and the fires are just beginning to dampen down. So I found a couple of great guys. We restructured it completely, brought new shareholders in, and we thought, where should we go? And did some research, and it became patently obvious, given my appetite for being in bizarre places, that it should be Africa. And so I'm actually the chairman of our holding company. I'm also the managing director of this local operating company here, and I arrived here June the 1st of the year, 2023. We've got our license, we've got a trained team now, wonderful people, and actually I feel, at least from a personal standpoint, that I come to the right place. I think the Zambians are a truly, truly lovely people. They're a dignified set of people, and they're a peaceable people. And the country's got a great future once they get their act together a bit. But from the business point of view, it wasn't easy, Gary, because essentially we started up just as a country that already had a troubled economy was going into a mega drought, which has severely impacted the economy even further. So, it hasn't been easy here the first year and a half, but I take a long-term view along with my fellow shareholders, and we're convinced we made the right decision to be here. And it's not just this country, it's the entire region between the Sahara and the South African border. Because as you know very, very well, probably better than I do, in South Africa, the industry is pretty tightly regulated, the capital controls are pretty tight, and it's a very different market there, much further ahead than the countries to the north of it. So the rest of it has been cultural acclimatization. There's been a lot to learn. I'll just say to the audience that don't come into Africa thinking that you can operate as if you're in, the home counties in England or even Dubai or Qatar. You will fail. You will fail. There are many, many specific elements to culture, mentality, and behaviour here that make it a real long-term play. This is not a short to a medium-term play. You have to be in it for the long term, or you will fail in Africa. And that's probably the biggest lesson I could get across to anyone listening.
Well, all I'll say that is that I see it as central, east, and west, where we see the volume of business or the interest is just, I don't know, I've never seen it before anywhere. The interest in what we're doing, the willingness to want to work with us, the opportunity throughout in all the countries I've been speaking to and visited. I'm massively excited about Africa in general. And hence,
you're very much of the same mind on this, aren't we? For sure. For Veri as a provider, for us as being on the front line, there are the most enormous opportunities. But don't think you can do it in the same old way. From your point of view, and from us as well, one thing that people want to see is quality. So they really had enough of people coming in here, tripping in and selling them the same old insurance company tat, and I'm thinking of savings plans and so on. And they really do want to be treated with the respect and the dignity that they deserve, and they haven't been historically. Not just in the old days, but also more recently as well. And Africans really do want to be offered quality. And if they're offered quality and they see the good intentions of people, then they're very open-minded and open-hearted, actually. And I know you've had a good reception from regulators, central banks. They're very keen for quality to join the capital markets because again, outside South Africa, the capital markets are not very developed. Here in Zambia, for instance, as you know, we just have the two local instruments of 22, I think it's soon to be 21 stocks on the local exchange and government bonds, and that's it. There's nothing else. There's no derivatives market. But I'll tell you what, the regulators here, again, as you know, they're a clever bunch of guys and gals. They've got a vision, and they're really keen to get on with this. So for people who are coming in and showing an interest and wanting to contribute, that they're welcome with open arms once the trust has been established, of course. So yeah, you from the provider end, us from the frontline retail end. Once you've established those credentials and the trust is there, they're very, very open-minded and open-hearted.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reception has been great, and the ongoing communication and the interest, and it's at all levels, from the banks, the asset managers, the stockbrokers, the financial advisors, the banks. You're looking at the fund managers, the pension providers, regulators, the exchanges. It's wonderful, and
and many congratulations, by the way, Terry, on your Zimbabwe deal. I'd love to know more details about that, but that's great to see. At our end also,
Zambia will possibly be
the next
Zambia
one.
will
Yeah,
probably be the next one. The next one we anticipate across the line.
no, great stuff.
We're
Yeah,
working extensively on that. So, and then we'll just knock them over as we go. And Namibia and Nigeria, Kenya, Botswana, we're working on all of those, and it'll just keep going and going and going until the 16 that we have in line are all done, and then we'll move on to the rest. And but yeah, to me, I'd say the connectivity. It's the fact that it's not been done before is great. To be honest with you, Ben, I'm enjoying that. I like to innovate, but I also like to provide something that's not just unique, but actually is of value. And as you pointed out earlier, this is definitely of value, and I think it is definitely needed in the industry. And I'm talking about the local advisor companies.
I've been asked recently by a fund management group here to set up a Zambian income fund for them, GBP, sterling denominated, which would pay monthly income back into Zambia. So I'm getting together with those guys next week. But where else could you be in the world where all you are is an investment advisor? You're nothing special in the world. And you're being asked to, set up investment funds with people. It doesn't happen everywhere, does it? So you and I know, both share this love of tilling virgin earth. And I think if you're going to put resources, yourself, time, money into this area, you've got to be prepared for these things happening to you.
Yep. That kind of brings me on to another question. Sorry, Ben.
No, you go on.
I was just going to ask you what excites you most at the moment about work in general, what you're doing right now.
Without any question at all, it's forging two things. Forging a team here from local Zambian citizens who are desperate to learn, want to improve, want knowledge, are hungry for it, want to improve themselves, and to impart the knowledge to them to enable them to make money for themselves and do it in a compliant, moral and clean way by giving good advice, empowering people. In other words, I know it's a bit of a jargonistic word, and I hate all of that management jargon, blue sky this and green field that and all that nonsense. But empowering is a real thing, and it's a joy to see it springing up like a seed planted in the ground, flowering in the spring. It's absolutely glorious to see it, and I'm seeing it on a daily basis with my team, and which is growing, and we have a wonderful dynamic in the office as well. So that's one thing, and the same thing, Derry, but at the corporate level, to see this this business which, yes, the people involved have got maybe, I don't know, the three of us main shareholders have got maybe 80 years of experience between us, but we're far-flung geographically. One is in the Far East, one is in Dubai, and the third one, me, here. So, but making a little business project, which really was a bit of a roulette wheel play at the end of the day, really put roots down, gain trust in the market, begin to establish its brand, and to be welcomed as seen as a very, very welcome, more professional alternative to what is already in the market. And we've had that message given to us many, many times. So those are the two things, Derry, that please me in my day-to-day work. We've got some other developments coming along as well to add to that. I think 2025 is going to be a very exciting year, to use another bit of the jargon that I don't like. I think it's going to be a tough year for the market, but it is going to be very sort of happy and exciting in the terms of the development that we're going to be bringing here. The extra services, the new solutions, and you, as you know very well, play a part in that as well. So 2025 and our region of Africa, let's make it specific to Zambia. A troubled economy for many years, very, very high growth after independence. Then, as usual, the infrastructure not maintained, no real strategy at government level, no planning, probably a fair bit of looting of the treasury along the way, and things go bump when a crisis hits, and the crisis that's hit Zambia this last year is the worst drought for many, many years. And I don't know whether you picked up with your links with Zambia and Zimbabwe, the two countries share Victoria Falls. I think the border is literally in the middle of them, isn't it? They're running dry at the moment. There's no water going over the edge at all. So that just shows what a dry year it's been. The result here in Zambia is that a troubled economy has been sent even further down by the fact that we're at the moment on 3 hours of electricity a day. And sometimes more than that, which you don't quite know why you've been given more than the promise, and actually sometimes none at all. So they will get it sorted out. They will. I do believe, although, Derry, I try not to involve myself in any way in politics, even to the extent of making any comments. I'm a guest here with a work permit, after all.
One of the things I'm curious about, and thanks for kind of earlier you mentioned about expansion plans and moving into various regions. I know you're very big on mentorship and supporting or developing your organisation from within. Is that what you're looking to do potentially in those regions as well?
No, we've got actually two models which we're quite happy to look at. One is organic, but given what I've said about the market here, that's potentially going to be a slow route, although one, of course, that would retain full control over the wider business. But we are prepared to look at arrangements for local offices where somebody could buy in to the local regulated entity, but not at the top company entity. The top company shares are all now assigned, and not all of them were for a while, but that has now been filled. So, we would definitely look at local partners. I mentioned the Angola office. I have a close friend here who is a Zambian man who actually has very, very extensive family links in Angola. One of his uncles is a government minister there currently. and he is actually setting up a separate financial services company there, right, literally as we speak. He's there right now, and he is definitely interested in having an equity stake in an Angolan office. And the deal would be, okay, we'll supply the personnel, we'll supply all the products and services, we'll supply the processes, the training, everything, but you're supplying the cash to get the thing up and running as a legal entity, the office for the first year, and the regulatory license. So that will be the deal. And yeah, for sure we'll look at that. So if there's anybody out there wanting to have a slice of an African office and you've got round about $75,000 to $100,000 free, just get in touch. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Well, it's a good platform to actually do that. On that note, I suppose as well, Ben. Yeah, I'm going to hand the floor. We've kind of gone through everything I need to cover, and thanks for your time. But what I want to do is kind of, for the next few minutes, is just hand the floor to you, for you to, tell everybody about, what's coming up, or what initiatives you've got, things you'd like to promote. The floor is yours, and you can say whatever you want, whether that be talking about the rugby over the weekend. I don't really mind. But the floor is yours, and over to you, just to,
No, well, thank you very much. Maybe I'll talk about the African market a little bit and what the taste here is, what the mentality is. Africans they're very conscious that they themselves are subject to just constant scam attempts. We Westerners as well, amongst us primarily the Brits, but not only, we have a history with them, going back to colonial days, of raiding the place and looting the place. Not in the way that the Russians are currently doing it in the Central African Republic by killing and massacring whole villages at once, which they're currently engaged in order to get access to gold and other resources, I'm afraid to say. But, we've done our fair share of looting down the decades. Yes, that's all stopped, but it's left a taste of that they've been used and abused. And I'm afraid, I think, in my view, they're 100% right to say that. And post-independence, they faced the same thing, but from themselves, their own doing it to them. So it's absolutely crucial for Africans that they can trust you, and trust is the biggest issue. You can't just come in and open an office and be terribly charming to people and get a buy-in straight away. First of all, you need your regulatory license. Everybody knows you need a regulatory license, and they won't talk seriously to you until you've got it. Now, in our case, it took nearly 1 year to get. Before I came here, I was told it would take 3 months, but that's a kind of African 3 months. It takes 12 months. You've got to assume that it will take much longer than you were told. I'm told in Nigeria at the moment is taking up to 18 months. So, and you're not meant to operate during that time. So you either get the pot boiling and then disappear and do something else for a few months, or you've got to have the working capital with you to see yourself through that period. But establishing your office and recruiting some staff and training them, and getting that regulatory license, these are only the foundational steps. You've got to create trust, and that is done here by, Gary, that our industry historically, maybe it's better now in some of the bigger expat centres like the UAE or Qatar, Saudi, but historically we've been very, very poor at marketing, haven't we? Owners of businesses have never ever wanted to put any money into brand development or direct or indirect marketing, events, seminars. It comes in a whole range of shapes and sizes, doesn't it? But we've historically, I think, been very poor at that. But Africa expects it. So you've got to have a budget for your brand development, and you've got to be able to do marketing. And it's not necessarily cheap. These are all issues to consider I think when you're considering any African market, in my view, any African market. Another thing that you've got to consider is what the model of business is. So, and I've had to say, Derry, I've had to amend our Caravelle model since I arrived here. I assumed, and it was just a giant assumption, that it would be the same as everywhere else. It would be AUM based. So, fund portfolio, whether regular savings or lump sum, fund portfolio based, on which you can charge an annual advisory fee. No, it's not that at all. The African mentality, I'm making generalizations here, of course, right? But what they understand is real estate. They understand owning and renting out property, and they understand the deal. The deal meaning a deal where I know what money I'm putting in, I know what money I'm getting out, and I know when I'm getting it. And I don't really want a long-term tie-in. Now, all of that militates against your fund-based portfolio. But this is experience to date, so I'm going to make some further comments about the original model, the AUM model I had. So maybe it's just the economic situation at the moment and our experience since we acquired our license about half a year ago. But I would say that particularly when the local currency is doing poorly, inflation is high. It's about 16% officially at the moment here. It will fall and be got under control. But this year so far it's been pretty awful. So people are looking for income. So therefore, property deals or fixed income instrument deals are what they get excited about. This is what prospects get excited by. However, you've got to be able to offer this market also that AUM model, but it's got to be high quality. So with your regular plans, try as best you can to get away from initial periods. Africans have been burned countless times. In my personal experience from Ethiopia down to Zambia here, and all the countries in between, many of them have been burned time and time again by, excuse me, one sec. Time and time again by the old initial period and lack of access to funds when they need it. But there's definitely an AUM model market there. 100% there is. But you do need to be focusing on the right people for that and be pretty choosy about who you do focus on. And the reason is this, that there is a lack of knowledge in the marketplace throughout Africa at the moment and a fear of what to us are standard asset classes. So cash, bonds, equities. Just a simple lack of knowledge of financial education. And of course that always, as we all know very well, that breeds fear and anxiety. So one thing, Derry, that we're focusing on, and it'll be launched on our website shortly, is a whole financial education section on the website. I've already got, I think, 50 articles already prepared for that. There's going to be a lot more. and it's going to be I want to build a really, really big resource. From things like, what is a fact find? What is a letter of acceptance? What is a client proposal? What is a bond? What is a stock? And all the way up to more esoteric and complicated things. But to offer a resource library of quality materials that people can dip into and learn. And Africans want to learn. They're hungry to learn. They love learning. But they've got to be provided with the quality materials to do that. Also, the regulators, as I know you know personally, are extremely keen on trying to include many, many more citizens in each of the countries in capital markets participation, whether it's buying stocks directly on the exchange or investing and saving in government bonds. And I applaud their efforts to do that. In fact, on Friday morning, I'm offering a webinar to our regulator here, our main regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, as their monthly, what they call their town hall webinar. So I'm actually doing that this Friday on the subject is what to expect from an investment advisor. Basically, these are the criteria that you've got to expect and demand from the person who's going to be looking after your money. So I've spent a lot of time creating a good presentation on that, and I hope very much that goes down well. So, yeah, the AUM model, where, of course, Veri Global is front and centre for many of us. I think that there's 100% there's a market here. There's no doubt about that. But one has to work a bit harder here than one would in a place like Abu Dhabi, for instance. It's a very, very different market. And as long as everybody understands that, there's not going to be any lack of missed expectations.
Brilliant. I agree with the efforts that need to be made. But it's great to actually understand what you're doing and how you're looking to actually go about it as well, Ben. Are the guys at the SEC?
No, my great pleasure, Derek. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. As you know yourself very well, the people are marvellous. There's so much talent, there's so much intelligence, there's so much creativity, there's so much ability to work bloody hard. But they need a bit of help and support to do it. But there are a lot of very, very bright people in key agencies in the financial sector in this and other countries in the region, and for sure they will get there.
Thanks, Ben, for joining us today and telling us all about yourself, telling us all about Zambia, telling us all about the economy that's out there, and also Caravelle Partners. And we look forward to hearing from you again, but we also wish you all the best of luck and success in the near and distant future.
No, thank you so much, Derry, and we're looking forward very, very much to working with you and Pierre-Yves and the rest of your team as time goes on, believe you me.
Veri Platform, connecting Africa's markets to the global financial stage. At Veri Platform, we're transforming the way investors access opportunities, both globally and across Africa. Our mission is simple: to create a seamless investment experience where African investors can tap into the vast potential of both their local markets and the global financial arena. Through cutting-edge technology, we're linking brokers and stock exchanges across the continent, offering investors unprecedented access to both local assets and international markets. Now, investors can explore equities, government and corporate bonds, and local funds from their home country, whether it's Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, or many other African nations. But it doesn't stop there. At Veri Platform, we believe in opening doors across borders. Imagine the ability to invest not only in your local markets but in those of your neighboring countries. This kind of cross-border investment strengthens financial markets, promotes economic growth, and offers a wealth of opportunities that were once out of reach for many African investors. With our platform, financial advisors and asset managers can bring their clients the best of both worlds, access to Africa's thriving local markets and the global financial stage. Our goal is to empower advisors and investors alike with the tools they need to manage diversified high-performing portfolios. By connecting markets across Africa, Veri Platform is shaping the future of how Africans invest in Africa. Whether you're an advisor looking to expand your service offering, or an investor seeking new opportunities, the possibilities are endless with Veri. Veri Platform. Investing in Africa and beyond.